Namaste, and welcome to our continuing series, Evenings with Sraddhalu. We welcome you here today for a very important talk on bacteria and viruses. You have something to read from us?
Yes.
Good.
First, I want to change how we view bacteria, viruses, microbes generally, from the way we've been taught. In medicine, there's a very fixed picture that's given to us that these are little creatures which have an independent life of their own, and they are somehow always changing, maybe evolving, we don't know. And every now and then they get into you and they cause an illness, and so you have to fear them. This is the starting point of at least what is taught. Now, the science may be more complex, but what is taught to the common person through media is a fear of bacteria and of viruses. And it's almost as if you're made helpless. Once it gets into you, then it's going to do its thing. You have to take medicine in order to get cured. And without medicine, it'll keep wreaking havoc. Or maybe your body is strong enough, but that's not encouraged in how it's taught to you. Equally, you are given this impression that all bacteria, viruses, etc. are all bad. Whenever you say, oh, there might be bacteria on this, don't touch, your starting assumption is bacteria are bad. Or your hand has touched the floor or something, you start eating, no, there's bacteria, throw it away. So the assumption or the implication here is bacteria are bad. In fact, from a purely science perspective, the picture is very different. And then we'll look at it from the yoga perspective, where it is even more different. So from the purely science perspective, we recognize that 90% of all bacteria are actually good for you. We'll even go so far as to say, in your body, if you count the number of cells and you count the number of bacteria, the number of bacteria is far greater than the number of cells in your body. And all those bacteria are good for you. Even they are necessary for you. Even without them, you would not be able to live. So now suddenly we change our picture of our relationship with bacteria, right? So, in fact, just in the gut, in the abdomen, nearly 2 kilograms, that's what, 4 pounds, 4.4 pounds of body weight is bacteria, which are doing good work, important work. You take them out and you cannot digest food. It's the bacteria which are doing the most significant part of the digestion of the food. We'll push it a few more steps. We discover that around the gut is also your what they call the second brain, because the number of neurons of your body primarily are maximum in the brain, and second most collection of neurons is in the abdomen, surrounding this whole region where the digestion takes place. And that's why we say gut feel. You feel something here instinctively. It's almost the power of your brain's thinking which is organized here, but it's not conscious. It is subconscious, semi-conscious. But it's all here surrounding this whole digestive process where all the bacteria, nearly 2 kg of it, is sitting.
I think Sri Aurobindo mentions that one has to feel poetry in the solar plexus.
Okay. Yes. And this whole part, there's something so important happening that the body needs to produce almost the second brain here. And all those bacteria, they are there not only for digestion, they are also secreting. They're secreting nutritional content, which the body is absorbing. Now, even under certain extreme conditions, if you provide enough nutrition for your bacteria, the bacteria will take that basic nutrition and convert it to amino acids, vitamins, and other structures, which your body will then absorb from the bacteria. They are feeding you. One more, which is from the mother's discussion about microbes. So now we are coming more into the true nature of microbes. And for that purpose, we will see what mother has to say. And you must keep in mind, the mother knew far more than she let out, as did Sri Aurobindo, A lot of things they did not speak because it was premature to the current mentality of humanity. It would be so different that they would say, oh, she's talking some ancient beliefs or some old teachings. Even now, I have met people and great devotees, sadhakas with a lot of intellectual training, and they're the ones who have this problem. They'll say, oh, you know, that text Mother is speaking of, that is what they used to believe in that century. It's not true actually. Modern science has come far ahead. Okay, because they are so programmed in their intellect. Okay. So there's one example she's giving to Satprem, where Satprem says he got ill. And he got this illness. And Mother says, was it painful? He says, oh, terrible, as if I were burning within. And then Mother says to him, that's it, like red hot iron claws. And others too had the same thing, the very same thing. Satprem, my body and muscles are aching all over as if I had been battered. And Mother says, yes, that's it, Maupati. Maupati, my child. Yes, that's it, Maupati. The doctors would say it was a mass of germs or microbes or viruses or God knows what. But it was vital ill will, vital malice. But with a coating material enough to act directly, Mother strikes. It was instantaneous, no need of incubation. Instantaneous, like a fiery sword ripping open your stomach. Charming. It will go away. But I stopped the immediate effect. I think Mother also had it earlier. So she's speaking of what she did to her own body. She said, I stopped the immediate effect. The immediate effect was almost catastrophic. I stopped it with my great method, that sort of inner immobility and leaving everything in the Lord's hands. Nonetheless, the next day I was unwell. I'm not quite well yet, as though the body had been terribly shaken. Then I saw all kinds of things. Oh, bah. An adverse organization in the most material vital by misleading, unenlightened spiritual aspirations. And she describes what is the force behind it. But you see, the way she's describing this attack, she says very casually, microbes, viruses, or God knows what. Almost as if that's irrelevant. But it was vital ill will, vital malice, but with a coating material enough to act directly, and she strikes. Now here we come to the yogic understanding of the true nature of microbes, viruses, etc. So you see here an ill will with a coating material enough to act directly. So you have an ill will which is primarily of a vital character of energy bundle, and with a coating which is almost material, and so it can act on matter directly. Now here we get our first clue. But we'll look at another passage of the Mother where she describes this in much greater detail. I'll just load this. And there she explains that the formation of the microbes is actually the materialization of vibrations from the lower vital worlds. And she links it also to dead people. Yes, here we have it. Now we'll complete with this. So I have the text. So there are people ask about microbes in the water and why do we take precautions to drink only filtered water. She says, even if you could convince yourself that what you're drinking is healthy water, it won't be enough, because in your subconscious you're open to all these negative suggestions that this water is not healthy, it will cause you to fall sick, and in your subconscious that impulse is going to come in and seize and do its thing. So then she speaks of the origin of the microbes. So she's speaking of the origin of the microbes. The beginning, she says, is in the vital. Now, without going to that extreme, there are in the physical atmosphere, the earth atmosphere, numerous small entities which you do not see. For your sight is too limited, but which move about in your atmosphere. Some of them are quite nice, others very wicked. Generally, these little entities are produced by the disintegration of vital beings. They pollulate, and these form quite an unpleasant mass. There are some which do very fine things. I believe I narrated to you the story of the little beings who tugged at my sari to tell me that the milk was about to boil. But all of them are not so good. Some of them like to play ugly little tricks, wicked little pranks. So most often it is they who are behind an accident. And she's talking about the accidents. And then if there is a group of such small entities, they may clash with one another because among themselves they do not have a very peaceful life. Clashing with one another, fighting, destroying, demolishing each other. And that is the origin of microbes. So lower vital beings very close to the physical plane, and because it's their nature to be, in conflict and chaos, they are fighting, they're breaking down each other, and that, demolishing each other, and that is the origin of microbes. They are forces of disintegration, but they continue to be alive even in their divided forms, and this is the origin of germs and microbes. Therefore, most microbes have behind them a bad will, and that is what makes them so dangerous. And unless one knows the quality and kind of bad will and is capable of acting upon it, there is a 99% chance of not finding the true and complete remedy. And now she summarizes. The microbe is a very material expression of something living in a subtle physical world, and that is why these very microbes that are always around you, within you, for years together, do not make you ill, and then suddenly they make you fall ill. There is another reason. The origin of the microbes and their support lie in a disharmony in the being's receptivity to the adverse force. And then she gives the example of what happened in Japan, where she had caught that plague, and she managed to defeat. She didn't take medicine because she had the occult power. She recognized what the being was, and she managed to defeat it. And then she explains that the people who had died, the air was full of the microbes of illness, and there was the fear and all that. But the people who had died in the war, their degenerating vital bodies, that was leading to the formation of these microbes and germs. And internally, it's finally an energy that you're battling, and an ill will inside that energy, which is the root cause of it. So now we come back to that earlier discussion where she said that, to Satprem, she said that there was this ill will and with a material coating. So it could go bang straight into the body. And now we're going to take a step back. All microbes are essentially formations of life energy approaching matter. So the lower vital world and the subtle physical, that's the band in which the energy bundles, tiny, not distinct enough to have an individuality, but broken up. And as a group, they might have a group tendency, that acquiring almost a material character of coating, that becomes the base of what we see as microbes and viruses. Bacteria generally. Let's put microbes as bacteria and viruses. We will look at the distinction between the two and the implications of this knowledge in greater detail when we have our next session. But just to quickly summarize what we have looked at. We started with this big picture of our current conception and relationship towards microbes and viruses. Well, let's for the moment stay with microbes. But we actually saw that 90% of all microbes are really good for us. Our body has more microbes than cells. Our abdomen, gut, skin, etc. depend on microbe, not only for good health, but for our basic nutrition and survival. And in the old days, rather than trying to kill microbes and sterilize, the approach was to spread good bacteria. And now you can think of it as good vibrations, which is behind the bacteria. You see, with the material form. Good vibrations spreading, purifying the air, and therefore with that there is no place for the bad will or bad bacteria to grow. And this is a much safer, saner, practical approach and more aligned to nature. It's as if you try to make land barren And what will happen next? The first thing that grows will be the plants which have the strongest the thorns, because that's how nature starts. The most hardy, resilient plants, nature will start regaining that place, and then only other plants would be able to grow. So in the same way with the bacteria, the most vicious bacteria begin to grow. Because they are vicious, you have all the illnesses which come. So we now review all bacteria, not as merely physical independent entities, but formations from the vital turning to the physical at a very borderline edge, contain largely formed of little beings, lower vital tiny beings, and the ill will of the beings clashing make for the bad bacteria. Goodwill of the good beings working together make for the good bacteria. And of course there is 90% goodness, 10% illness in the bacteria as we experience them. But as Mother said, there are far more bacteria than we know. And now we understand why. Because for every vibration, there is an equivalent bacteria which expresses that vibration. So with this background, we will explore this yogic perspective of bacteria and then look at what happens when human beings start manipulating bacteria and viruses.
Thank you so much.